Hello, I'm Roy Richardson, and this is the Dynamic Business Leaders Podcast. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on the Dynamic Business Podcast. I'm Roy Richardson, and I have a guest here today that has a bio and a career that I'm so excited that we're able to actually have him here and to enable him to share his experiences with you. And I'm speaking no other than John Tenney, who is from EmployerNomics. John has a stellar career, going back, starting in the 80s in software engineering and systems administration. He then went into becoming a professional musician, and during that time, took an interest in aviation, earning his pilot's license, becoming an instructor, actually then going into commercial air transport. 95, he actually became a pilot for American Eagle and later went on to US Air Express and flew regional jets for those airlines before actually going on to Midway Airlines, where he was a first officer for the Boeing 737. Unfortunately, that career was cut short by the events of 9/11 and the damage that was done to the aviation industry thereafter. But John, and knowing him, and let me state this, John and I are in several little circles together here in Central Florida, and I've always known him to be somebody who is a mover and a shaker. And so it is no surprise that that he pivoted away from aviation and then went into looking at PEOs and workers' comp. And in 2016, together with his wonderful wife, Kathleen, they formed EmployerNomics, which is a nationally franchised, HR outsourcing brokerage. And John has grown that to the point now where he has 7 franchises and he has many more in the making. But as if that's not enough, John and his wife also took on in 2011, prior to this, they formed the Orlando Runners and Riders, which is a group to promote good health, safety, and public service in the sports of running and cycling. John has a lot of time on his hands, so even in there, he's a cycling official, he's a race director for the USA Cycling Club for Team Kyle's Bike Shop, and he's extremely passionate about consulting with small to medium-sized business owners to help them to get to the next level. Ladies and gentlemen, John Tenney. John, welcome.
I feel like I should applaud. Can I just say, Roy, I've given that bio to so many people to introduce me, and no one has ever done it as well as you just did there. I felt like I was blushing, like I was looking around like, who's he talking about? Thank you.
It's good to have you here, John, and thanks for taking time today to really, tell your journey and where you've been. And I got to say, you have a stellar bio, and I know that many of our readers, our viewers, I should say, and listeners are going to be very excited to hear about your journey out there.
I could be out riding my bike. If you look at that, it's like we were talking about beforehand. Someone reads that bio and says, "Wow, this guy's done a lot," but the smart person looking at it will be like, "Is this guy ever going to figure out what he wants to be when he grows up?" And the answer is no. At an early age, I was told that a man should change his career every 10 years at least. Because why limit yourself to one thing? Get around and learn a lot. I didn't put this in the preview, but I want to tell you about a thing I did when I was a corporate pilot back in the 90s. What I would do is I would fly some business people or lawyers or whoever they were to a small airport like Naples or Tallahassee, where there were just mostly corporate airplanes, single engine, some jets, but the small jets, the private jets. I think some of the people call them jizzies. I don't know what that means. The King Airs and stuff. And I was sitting there and I'd get paid by the hour just to sit there and wait for them. But it was hours for dollars. I realized that this isn't a way to make a fortune. Because if you're just trading your own time for dollars, you're never going to get to the point where you have time.
Yeah.
So I like that cash flow quadrant that Robert Kiyosaki has, the ES and the company, the BI, the business and investor. I said, the only way to get over to that other side is finding some way to make money when I'm sleeping. So, but all these guys would come in on these fancy jets, and you know what I mean. You go inside and they're luxuriously laid out.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it took some guts, but I finally walked up to some people walking out of one of them, and I said, "Hey, who owns this?" And I was lucky. The owner was one of the people. He goes, "I do." Why? I go, "I hate to bother you, but I got a question." He goes, "Go ahead. What?" I go, "How did you get here where you can own one of these? What decisions and processes did you go through to the point where you could own a beautiful piece of machinery like that? And what do you think he did?" He said, "Come with me." We went into the pilot lounge. We sat down. He says, "You want here? Get a cup of coffee." And he told me for 2 hours his life story.
Wow.
And there were people on the, you remember back in the 90s, they had those big cell phones, that looked like the field.
Oh yeah, you mean
There's guys walking around out in the lobby and they're looking in, and one of them's leaning in going like, he's like, hey, we'll go when I say we're going to go. All right. I'm talking to this man here. They loved to tell their story, but I listened and I said, you know what, I'm going to try this with other people. And I wish I'd written them all down. I didn't even think about it at the time, but I must have talked to 100 to 150 different aircraft owners throughout the next, say, 6 months.
Uh-huh.
And I learned a lot about business by listening to these guys. And so I took a lot of what they said, plus what my father had told me, who was a Supreme Court judge for New York, and he also owned a bunch of businesses. But one of the things they always said is that you have to work for yourself.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
You really do. No one is ever going to pay you what you're worth. And in years, I've been doing meetings and I've asked people to stand up and tell me, is there anybody here who thinks they get paid what they're worth? And there was one guy once. He stood up. I said, really? You get paid what you're worth? He goes, yeah. I go, what do you do? I work at the post office. I said, yeah, you probably do get paid what you're worth. He had a sense of humor about it. So anyway, that's just a little pre-story.
No, that's you were sharing that and how you took away all these nuggets from different people you met over time. And it took me back down memory lane on, similar journeys that I've had and people I met and was fortunate that they would take time out of their day, much like you're doing today, to share your, story and experiences with others. But that the type of experience and the knowledge you gain from those types of interactions, that's not even something that I would say that you could place a value on. It's it's not something you just walk into someplace and subscribe to and all of a sudden you get it, right? I mean, these people are sharing their experiences with you in their life journey. So yeah, and I can tell you, even from myself, and going back and thinking on some of the people who have been influential in my life. The advice that they gave me still holds true today, and I keep that dearly. I follow their pattern, and not try to reinvent the wheel.
Never did one of them refuse to at least talk to me.
Yeah.
Every single one of them that I actually met, that was the owner or the guy in charge, they always took at least 5 or 10 minutes to sit down with me. I mean, we always sat down. They said, "Let me tell you my story." So I learned, the first thing I learned from there was like, everybody who's successful loves to tell their story.
Yeah.
But I'm glad they did. And also, they don't remember their failures. I'd ask them what's their biggest failure, and they all go, geez, I got to think. I said, when's the last time I failed? And when they finally remember it, go, I failed a lot, but I just don't remember those.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. Where you're going to fail a lot. In sales, which I'm in sales, and well, we all are, right? If you're married, I'll show you, that was at least one completed sale. Okay. So how many no's you have to get to get a yes?
Mm-hmm.
So a successful salesperson is going to hear no a lot more than they hear yes. Same with business people. They're going to hear no. They're going to fail a lot. I mean, I've had 13 or 14 different businesses in my life, and the number of failures far exceeds the number of successes.
Right. And it's okay to fail and learn from those. I mean, those are all mistakes, and they're mistakes, but they're learning experiences is what I meant to say. As long as we learn from them and we move on. I mean, God knows, my wife and I are not, we're in our second business here. But it was not easy getting to where we were even in the first one, and not because you're successful in one business, does not necessarily mean that you can take that template and bring it to another business and that you're going to be automatically, you're automatically going to be successful, right? You're going to run into different challenges.
Yeah, you learn from your mistakes, and no, you don't learn better from somebody else's mistakes than you do from your own. I wish you could. I've always tell people, please feel free to learn from my mistakes, but nothing hammers home the point like making a mistake yourself. Yeah. My first business, other than my paper route, my first real business was a partnership, which I learned don't do that. They're selling sailing accessories in upstate New York because I love sailing. Now you got to remember, summer's beautiful in New York, especially if it hits a weekend. Okay, so the season was 4 or 5 months long. It's very difficult to support a business that only has a 4 or 5 month season.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You learn about things like that. But I learned it the hard way by failing.
Yeah, but so John, you've gone through, and as you shared with us, look, you've failed more than you've been successful. You've learned along the way. You've been able to pivot even when you were facing adversity right in its face. So what do you define as success?
That's one of my favorite questions. That's why I asked you to ask me that. Everybody defines it differently. Although I think most people agree with this definition, at least financial success, and in a way life success, is having the time, the money, and the health to do what you want to do, when you want to do it, and with the people you want to do it with.
Yeah.
And it's a continuing, goal. We're not there yet. I still have to work. Well, I still want to work. I got to admit, I like working. I enjoy what I do, but I don't have, sometimes I have the time, sometimes I have the money. What I need though is more friends to do things with me. I need more people who want to be successful like we are. And so I'm reaching out, trying to find people. Hey, if you've got time and money to do what you want to do, when you want to do it, hey, let's get together. Let's see if we can, do something together.
Nice. And then, and this, with regards to your success and your journey that you've been on in terms of getting to where you are today, what would you say is one of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome?
Oh, okay. There's a lot of those. Like what you say, the biggest thing is lack of knowledge. I used to think I knew everything. Now that I know everything, I realize I know nothing. There's so much out there to learn. And when a young person thinks when they know this much, they think that's all there is to know about a certain niche. Then you find out, whoa, there's a lot of things I didn't know.
Yeah.
I think the biggest challenge I've had is realizing that not everyone is looking out for me. They aren't. They're looking out for them. Everyone's favorite radio station is WIIFM. What's in it for me?
For me, yep.
And I've had to realize that when someone tells me, like, this is a win-win, this is great for you, this is great for me, what it means is it's great for them.
Yeah.
And it may be great for me. I've also learned that you can't be in a hurry. I'm a faithful person, and I believe that God does nothing in a hurry. Okay, if somebody tells you, like, you got to get in today, this is a now or never, ground floor opportunity. None of those ever work.
Yeah.
If I got to get in now, I go, why? Let's see if you're still going 6 months from now. And guess what? None of them were. So whenever I look at a business or opportunity, I realize that you need to do your due diligence. You need to read the fine print, and you need to get it in writing. And I'll tell you how I found this out. I got into business with a guy back in the 90s, and we had a great relationship. We were working together. It wasn't a partnership. I had my own corporation. He had his. We had a joint venture sort of thing. Well, he died, and his kids took over the business. Now, his kids were nothing like he was.
Oh, yeah.
They had their own ideas of how things should be done. And they basically drove me out of the business. I left because I had a lot invested in it, not only in money, but in time. And time is the one thing I wish I had more of. You can get more money. You can't get more time.
That is true. That is true.
If there's an 800 number to God where I can call him and say, hey, $2 million for another year, deal, I'd be on that number. Okay. But you can't. There's, that's why I'm riding my bike every day and trying to stay healthy, because it was about 9 years ago today that I realized that I needed to get healthy. I was 51 years old and I was thinking, 54 years old. I was thinking, this is it. I'm on the back nine. Okay. As one of my coworkers used to say, I'm on the long slide to the big sleep. I said, there's nothing I can do about it. I might as well just relax. I'd have to take a picture down, but I weighed 290 pounds. I was big. I was out of shape. If I walked down the street, I started breathing hard. And fortunately, one of my doctors looked at me and said, he gave me a homework assignment. He said, I want you to come back to me next week, no charge, free visit. But I want you to have two things done. One, tell me when you're going to lose the weight, now or later. And two, I want you to get around every old fat person you find and do your best to find out how old they are. Ask them what year they graduated from college or something like that. Because you can't just walk up and go, hey, how old are you?
How old are you? Yeah.
Well, but it shocked me. I was around someone that this one woman, she was overweight. She was gray. She looked terrible. I figured she was 60s. I'm talking to her for a while, and it was clear that she was in her 40s. It scared the bejesus out of me. I went back to see him next week and said, okay, what do I got to do? And he said, well, the first thing you got to do is lose the weight.
Yeah.
And then you got to get your conditioning up. And that's when I started an exercise plan. And I realized that that's one of the four things you need. I journal every day. I put down, how was today spiritually? How was today personally? How was today business-wise? And how was it health-wise? And I do it 1 to 10. And maybe put a little comment about why it was a 1 or why it was a 10 or, And I realized that you got to have the health. I was asked about 10 years ago, 10 years from now, what's going to be your most valuable possession? And I would jokingly put my teeth. But you know what? I've lost quite a few teeth since then. It wasn't as funny as we are laughing right now, but I realized your health is your most valuable possession. You can't help other people if you're dead.
Yeah, that's true.
You certainly can't. You're going to help them less if you're in a wheelchair and need to be taken care of. So that leads up to why we started Orlando Runners and Riders. I don't run anymore. I'm a retired runner, but I do try to ride a bike every day, at least a half hour, just to get the cardio up. And it has helped me keep my weight down, and it's definitely helped me be in condition.
I can relate to your story, John, because and particularly in the technical industries, we tend to get drawn into very long days, sitting at desks, staring at screens, I think it was back in 2005 or 6. I was probably twice the size that I am right now, I lost a very, very good friend to a heart attack, and that really opened up my eyes. And I remember going to the doctor the next day when my wife took me in there and she said, "This is it. We're changing our lifestyle." I tilted the scale upwards of 360 pounds, believe it or not. Yeah. So it's I feel great today, and my daughter's vegan, my wife is vegetarian, my son and I are selectarians, but
you don't look a pound over 350.
Sorry?
You don't look a pound over 350.
but yeah, it's you're right, dropping all that weight and focusing and you got to be healthy. You're right. My wife still feels there are a lot of areas where I could make some changes, and I'm committed to doing so. So, that's it keeps the mind fresh and keeps things in focus.
And the outlook changes too. If you notice, I'm not thinking, it's going to be 5 or 6 years. I'm thinking I got another 20 or 30 years.
Yeah.
I realize I can do this for 20 or 30 more years.
Yeah,
I got a lot of time left.
Yeah, and that's amazing what you're doing with the runners there, and that whole organization and your commitment to that. and how you've been able to. Sorry?
It isn't that much. I mean, it's only Saturdays.
Yeah, but still, it's something. And I mean, but you've taken your personal experience and translated that into a commitment to help others. I
hope we're helping people.
Sorry?
I hope we're helping people. I mean, we do raise money for charities. That's really, and I'm kind of careful. I mean, some people don't like this, but I vet charities. I go into them, I look at their Form 990s. I want to see how many six-figure board of directors they have.
Yeah.
And really, if they've got any, they don't need my money.
Yeah.
We're looking for the small local charities where nobody's working for them, where it really is charity, where they don't have a professional fundraising operation. Because to me, that if you're working for a charity, well, that's not charity, that's a job. So we try to help the ones that, are small, and I don't want to say, well, it's just sort of my ethics. I believe that charity should really be charity.
Yeah.
So we found several local small charities that do great work, and nobody's benefiting from it except the people that need to benefit from it.
Nice.
There was one big bicycle charity that had tried to get me to get involved. And I went to this guy's house down on Lake Nona, and it was 2-story. It was about 6,000 square feet, had that giant pool out back with a kitchen on either side of the pool.
Yeah.
Going out over the pools. And I said, wow, so what do you do for a living? He goes, oh, this, I work for the charity. I went, really? How much do you make? He says, well, I get to keep 1/3 of what I raise. Really? He says, yeah, I raised $6 million last year. You don't need my money.
No, I hear you. Hey, you mentioned ethics just now. Are there any particular values or ethics that have helped you get to where you are now?
Okay, thank you. Yes, there are. And this is important to business people, is that if you want to look at ethics as something moral, you can, but you can also look at it as good business. If you are ripping people off or scamming people, you're not going to last long.
That's true.
This is a very small world, and it's round. Okay.
That is true.
So for the long term, if you're in a business for long term, you've got to, follow the golden rule. You have to treat people the way you want to be treated. Do unto others, right? So I've always been honest, although sometimes I tried to act like I knew more than I did. And I got lucky. People still stuck with me anyway, because they thought, well, maybe he'll learn. But that was a mistake. I realized that when I first got into the business I'm in now, I walked around acting like I knew something, and I knew nothing. I went from an airplane cockpit to auditing these multi-million-dollar companies on workers' comp, and they were called PEOs, and I didn't even know how to spell PEO.
Yeah.
And I tried to act like I knew what I was doing, and I realize now that I had to overcome that in later years. People would say to me, you've come a long way. You really have learned about your business, but boy, you knew nothing in the beginning, man. You were kind of a joke. I don't want to be kind of a joke, So my ethics and my values are think long term, do what's best for your client. If you worry about doing what's best for your client, you will become a trusted advisor. And they'll let other people know. They'll tell people, this guy didn't do what was best for him. He did what was best for me. That gets around. Yeah. And then, and as you and I have found out, it keeps us pretty busy, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Yes, it definitely does. And it's, I'm glad you shared that with everyone, particularly with regards to trust and looking at the long-term part of things, because a lot of times, and I think we've all met people within our realms and over our business career who you can clearly see as they're coming down the pike, this is a short-term person. Their way of thinking is very short-term. They're in it, and if this doesn't work out, they'll try something else and they come back with a different flag. But it's never, ever about really building that solid relationship and establishing themselves as a trusted advisor to their clients. So I'm happy that you and I we're in similar businesses, although we look at things a little differently. You protect employers from employees. I protect employees or business owners from hackers. But it's really within the same realm. And in our line of work, it's extremely important to be able to have that open line of communication. Trust is extremely important. And then, of course, being respected or actually acknowledged by our clients as trusted advisors.
I would imagine that you and I both face the same challenge when we sit down with a prospective client. I'll give you an example, just a theoretical example. I don't really see myself as a broker or an HR person. I'm a travel agent. Yeah. I take their business from point A to point B. Okay.
Yeah.
Which one do you think is the easiest for them to describe? Point A or point B?
I believe that they probably may be easier for them to describe where they want to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Finding out where they actually are, in other words, where things are broken. And I'm sure this is the same with you. Everybody tells you, oh yeah, we got all that covered. Until they trust you, they don't really tell you like, well, we don't really do nightly backups. We just say we do.
Yes.
Or with us, they say, oh no, we really don't have workers' comp. We use exemptions, or all of our employees are on 1099. I'm sure we run into that, but you have to get to that level of trust before because let's face it, most people, their business is their baby.
Yeah.
It's their youngest child or their oldest child. And nobody wants to tell you their baby's ugly. So that's where you have to get to a level of trust.
Yeah.
Before they'll share with you, this is really where I'm vulnerable. And actually that's the same with you. This is where we're vulnerable. And I bet with you, just like it was with me, it's probably the third or fourth thing they bring up that's really the problem.
Yeah. And sometimes they don't, they don't understand how vulnerable they are. There are definitely those scenarios, but 9 out of 10 times they think they're well buttoned up, or they're doing certain things that are getting them by, that they believe will fly under the radar, but in fact all it's doing is really opening up that the risk factor there, right?
Exactly. Oh, we're fine with ADP. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to mention ADP. I said I wasn't going to mention ADP. I'm just picking on ADP because they've been annoying me lately, but they're actually a good company and they're a very good solution for a lot of people. I know who I can pick on. I will pick on QuickBooks for a little bit. QuickBooks is a great piece of accounting software. It's really good for managing your books, for your accounting, for helping you deal with your CPA at the year. What they are not good for is payroll. And this is why. Because it's all in your QuickBooks file. So if the IRS decides to audit you, unless you have somehow had somebody break your payroll into a separate file.
Oh yeah, they're going with that as well.
They look at the whole thing and they look at the last 6 years. We had an ex-client of ours going back to QuickBooks and they got audited and they went through their 6 years returns, not just their payroll, but all their corporate returns, and they found several issues, and it was a very complicated and quite expensive audit. So if you use QuickBooks, that's great. And I know QuickBooks makes money on payroll, but just remember that if you get audited, QuickBooks doesn't come to the audit with you. They just send a note saying, hey, we told them the rules are all on the website. We just processed the numbers they gave us, 4 words to that effect. It's not like if you had a CPA who's going to sit there with you, or a payroll company like ADP or Paychex who will send a representative at least to be with you. Or if you're a PEO and you never get audited because it's not your payroll anymore, it's theirs. So that's another, remember we were talking about risk management?
Yep.
That's one of the ways to transfer the risk. You make it somebody else's problem. So that's why I like to tell people that if you're using QuickBooks, first of all, yes, it's cheap, but think back to the last time you paid the lowest price for something and it ended up costing you more in the long run. Has that ever happened to you?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Happened to everybody.
Yeah. So how does your company help out in a scenario like that, John?
Well, okay. Sometimes we don't. I would say that if I sit down with someone's company, 3 or 4 times out of 5, we do nothing for them for various reasons. One, they're already covered.
Mhm.
Two, they don't want to admit they got a problem. That's the most common.
Yeah.
Or three, they're beyond our help. The horse has already left the barn. You can't close the barn door. The horse is already gone. So, but let's just say it's one of those where we can't help them and they realize it. About 3/4 of the time, we place them with a PEO who becomes the employer of record for their employees. And this is probably getting up to where I should show you how we do that, huh? Because we actually have this pretty slick piece of software that is.
Yeah, share with us.
Yeah, I'm gonna thank you for allowing sharing. It's gonna ask me a little note here. Yes, I gave you an update. Okay, so this is our matchmaker software, and it has all of our, it's sort of a CRM too, but what I really want to show you is that we have over 400 companies in here that we can reference. This is I have 327 PEOs authorized right here, okay? These are the 327 that I trust, or at least that haven't broken my trust yet. I don't know them all, but as soon as someone breaks my trust, I take them out.
Yeah.
And then we have payroll companies. Actually, ADP and Paychex are both in here. There's a bunch of others. And then we have these staffing firms like Nicole's company, you know, they're not here yet, but we're going to get her in here. So we have our markets. Okay. Then we take someone who we do an analysis of a client. Say, let's look at this. Here's a company in California I was working with. This is their annual payroll. Okay. We fill out, if you're on Match.com, consider this their profile. Okay.
Gotcha.
Fill out this profile, which has a number of filters. Okay. Shows what they're looking for in HR, has a description of their business, shows some things about workers' comp, some insurance questions, and then some payroll numbers, and then some benefits questions, and then some little things about payroll, and then some explanations. Okay, and then we also have the ability to upload other documents that the agent might send along. This one we happen to be working with a property and casualty agent, so he had a lot of information he could upload to, including claims history. So then we have that, which is our dating profile, if you will. Then that gets put through the system out. It gets sent out to all those companies that were on my list that match the filters.
Okay.
So not all of them. It gets sent to those that say, okay, yeah, we work in that state. We like that kind of work. They meet our minimums, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then they see an email that has just basic information about the company without names, without phone numbers, without contact. And they have to click a button, whether we want to know more. And as soon as they click that button, an agreement pops up where they say, if we work with this client, we're going to work with you for the next, I don't know how long it is. I think it's 6 months. Okay. So in the next 6 months, they're going to work with us if they work with that client. And by work with us, means pay us a commission.
Right, right.
Okay. So then once they accept that, then they start sending us quotes. And we have the pricing on the quotes, and we can look at each quote individually if we want. Some of them start out with a description of the PEO. This is Kimberly Group. They're right here in Orlando. They're down on Orange Avenue. They're very good people. We use them a lot. They do it. They're not perfect, but what I like about them is when they make a mistake, they fix it right away.
That's important.
Yeah, and that's what matters. They get right on it if there was a mistake. And then here's their prices. Here's the overall price for the year. Plus here's the minimums they're going to pay. If they run no payroll at all, they're paying that. There's a minimum. And then there's other things, like there's a deductible for workers' comp. There's a deductible for EPLI, which is employment practices liability, and a bunch of other, minimum fee. There's no setup fee, which is nice. No setup cost, zero. And it's approved. Okay, so then we can, once we decide that that's the one we want the client to see, we send it to them. And we only send one. I don't turn it into a beauty contest. I don't do what they call spreadsheeting. I don't send them 4 quotes and then they pick the cheapest.
So you're vetting so in other words, you're vetting the whole process and then selecting the one you you feel works best for the customer based on your criteria, et cetera, and present that final, let's call it the winner.
The first vetting is done by the filters.
Got you.
Right? So we find somebody that is technically compatible. And then when we get the multiple quotes, then we do our research and we actually talk to like the people who send us the quotes and say, hey, they want this, 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 and that. Can you do that? Yeah, okay. Then we find the one that makes the best sense, not the best price. I find out their budget first. How much do you want to spend? What do you want to spend? And you can see that there's a lot of going back to here. This is our history for what's happening, how we talk to each one. And, you know, we keep a history on each client so we can keep track of what was done. And in case there's a dispute later, we can pull it up. Well, look right here. This is what you said. You said this in an email. And I also have this little thing. You'll appreciate this. You know what a QNAP is, right?
Yep.
Okay, that's 16 terabytes. Okay, and it is supposedly backed up every night, but I gotta admit I haven't verified it. But I keep all documents and emails I get from the client and the PEO on that QNAP and on the cloud backup. So that's kind of how our system works. I just wanted to show you that.
Nice.
So what we tried to do, Roy, is develop a combination. We're trying to automate it, as much of it as possible, because as I told you, we sell franchises and we want them to just plug and play. But we still got to teach them, how do you do the final vetting? There's still that last 10% that has to be done by hand. And I tell you, I'm never going to be comfortable with doing 100% of it automated. I still believe you got to have the more things are getting automated, the more things is internet. I think the personal touch is more important than ever.
That's true. That is, I mean, but that you're absolutely right on that. And you know, look, every automation is man-made, right? It's bound to fail. I mean, last week there were outages on Microsoft's 365 platform, and you know, our phones lit up because we have customers on there, and of course, you know, this is not supposed to fail, but yes, you know, there is that, you know, it's in our industry, we call it to the 5 nines, right? It's 99.999% that it will be up, but you're going to have that, you know, 0.001% that it's down. And then of course we figure out 1 million
clients, at least one of them is going to have a problem.
There you go. But that's very impressive what you've put together there, John. And I see where that,
we've had a lot of help with that. And that's been developing. We've been developing that with our partners, with PEO Depot, who we're working with. We've been working on that. Well, they've been working on it for 25 years, but the last 5 years, we've been giving them input into what we think should be good and what shouldn't. And they've been, you know what really impresses me about them is I was talking to the guy who's in charge, Tim, one night at 9:30 at night. And I said, you know, it would be really good if we could put this feature. And he goes, give me 5 minutes. I'll call you back. He called me at 5 minutes. Take a look at it now. And he put it in.
That's nice.
I said, you did that? He goes, no, I called up my IT guy, had him do it. He goes, you called your IT guy at 9:30 at night? He goes, I figure it's 9:30, I'm working. He can get off, get off the couch, you know? But that's what impresses me is if we have a problem with the software, the response is phenomenal. You know, we're really happy with our relationship with them, you know, it's a contractual relationship. Obviously that's our software. As well as theirs. So.
And that's important. You know, when I owned my telecom company and we were looking for, this actually takes me back. We were looking for what is called a subscriber management system, a billing platform. And we vetted many different companies looking around to see who, you know, is the right fit, who has the bells and whistles we're looking for, et cetera. We found a firm out of Canada who we ended up going with. And I never, ever had to go back and actually say, you know what, that was a bad mistake, because it ended up being the best mistake ever. It was a similar scenario to what you have. It became a partnership more than a client-vendor type relationship. And we were feeding into them our requests, which they were turning around quickly, which was improving their processes and their software, and they could go out and sell it as new features. And so we got a great deal on, you know, being the think tank. But the nice thing is our entire customization that we wanted over the course of 10 years, you know, we didn't have to wait for, you know, wish lists of, you know, 2, 3, 4 months for things to happen.
One of the other nice things we've got about this is that since we've been so, instrumental in building the system to where it is today. If I showed you what it looked like 5 years ago, you would laugh. It looked like it was written on an MS-DOS computer in the 80s. Okay.
Wow.
I mean, it was cheesy. And we made it look, I mean, but it still was functional, but we made it look good and go quickly, and it's efficient to the point now where if you want to get into that software, you got to go through us. There's only 5 of us authorized to put people in there, and EmployerNomics is the most active of them right now. So, and that's how much he trusts us. And that's back to the ethics thing, because I always told him what's best for both of us in the long run. And I meant it, because if I can do something that's good for him and his wife and his team, you know, they've got 20 people on staff over there that will answer us. You know, we can text them like anytime, and they will, return a text. Says, you know, what's the best for you? This was the best for us. What's the best for you? And now they're asking me, what can we do for you? You know, they send me bottles of bourbon, which I'm out of right now.
Had nothing to do with this stay-at-home stuff, right?
Well, no, I just, you know what, I give them away, because I do like bourbon, but if I've got a client who's done something exceptional, I'll go take one of the bottles he sends me and give it to them. Yeah, really, I shouldn't do that, because now I'm out of bourbon. I'll tell you, I got to let him know that I need another bottle of Buffalo Trace.
But that's impressive. And you know, look, you shared a few good nuggets here. First of all, you know, is ethics and building that line of trust, and always do unto others as you expect others to do unto you. And as a result of that, you've been able to really, you know, nurture this relationship to a point where it's a mutual trusting relationship, right? So I got to ask you, and this is always a nugget that I like to, you know, pass on to business owners out there. If there's something you could teach new business owners, you know, in terms of 1 or 2 things that they should remember when they're starting their business, things that have helped you along the way, what would be like one of the 2 key nuggets besides the ones you shared already?
Oh gosh, I got hundreds of them, but let me pick 2 that we haven't gone into. First of all, is don't put your heart on your sleeve. People are going to make business decisions which are not in your best interest.
Yeah. And
you may think they're doing it to screw you. They're not. They're doing it because they think it's the best thing for them.
Yeah.
And this is another lesson from my dad, the Supreme Court judge. He'd be sitting on, and he told me, he said, every single criminal that was in front of me, except the insane ones, but he said, every single non-psychotic criminal I had in front of me, at the time they were committing the crime, they not only thought it was the best thing for them, they thought it was the best thing for the world. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, upon reflection, they realized they made a mistake. So when you're dealing with somebody and they do something that seems like a hostile act, you have to remember they're only doing what they think is best for everyone. So do not take it personally. That's what I would say is keep a thick skin for business, because sometimes people will do things that you think, well, why are they doing that? That's the dumbest thing in the world. Well, they don't think so.
Yeah.
Always remember that everybody thinks what they're doing is the right thing, and try to see it from their side. Okay. And so the other one that comes from that is that always give them the benefit of the doubt and say that, look, hey, maybe we're not a good match right now. So set a time where you can talk to them later and say, 6 months, a year, 5 years, when should we talk again? And believe it or not, I mean, especially, I don't know how it is in your industry, but in my industry, enemies from 10 years ago are allies now.
Oh, yeah.
So it's really, because people, I'm not going to say leopards change their spots, because they don't, but situation changes and people learn. People do learn. So those are the 2 things I would give up, is that, how to summarize those. 1, remember everybody has reasons for what they do, and they aren't involved in being mean to you. That's not what they're trying to do. They're doing what's best for them. And 2 is don't burn the bridge. Keep the bridge up, and, try to meet someone halfway on the bridge every few months, few years, or whatever, from time to time.
Yeah, I learned that, back in the telecom industry. particularly, you need to have a working relationship with every other operator out there, because no matter how good your network is, there will be a day when you have a critical scenario on your hand, and you're gonna need to rely on someone else's network to get you out of it. And so, we always went from the standpoint of enemy or not, competitor or not, we're going to help you, because there's going to be a day where we know we're going to have to, we're going to need to cash in on that help. So
there's a corollary to that too, Roy, is it's more important to be a friend than to be right.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I've had people come back to me saying, we made a mistake. I go, we all make mistakes, man. Let's talk about it. How can we fix it up? Yeah. Forget that. I know that was a mistake. So what? Moving forward, what do we do? I don't want to point any, never point any fingers. Don't try to place blame on anything. Never do. And I told you so.
Yeah.
Unless you do it as a joke. Because I will do that. Hey, I told you, you're buying drinks or you're buying lunch next time we meet, because I was right? Just as a joke, and that's going to be it. I try to minimize it.
Minimize that. Yeah, don't rub that salt in that wound.
Exactly, because everybody makes mistakes, and if you give people a chance, and don't, there's a book out there called "I'm Okay, You're Okay." I don't know if you've seen that. Yeah, but you always want to be like not okay, because then they'll try to pull you up. Don't be up here, because then they're going to try to pull you down.
That's true.
So
that's true.
I digress.
No, you're good. You're good.
I'm good at digression.
Let's go back here on small businesses, and you and we've had discussions, and I know that you really think that small businesses is the foundation of freedom in this country. Why is that?
Because it's the truth. But you want to know why? Okay. And this is from my own personal experience in the last, year or two that I've been in business. This isn't our first rodeo, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've been in situations where you deal with small businesses and I deal with large businesses. And I have developed a distrust for any company that's got, say, more than 100 employees. And the reason is once they start achieving a certain size,
mm-hmm.
the leadership gets compartmentalized.
Yeah.
It's no longer one guy. The buck doesn't stop here. The buck stops with the board or the shareholders or something. And so everyone will just sit there and go, well, I'm glad that's not my responsibility. And they'll make decisions which are harmful. But it's not their, not my circus, not my monkeys, something like that. They're going to pass it off. Whereas a small business, you think back to the turn of the 18th to 19th century, back in 1900. Or is it the 19th or the 20th? I get those mixed up. Around 1900, 90% of Americans owned their own business. You had the drugstore guy, you had the general store, you had, the barber shop or whatever, the saloon, whatever, the guy that made the doors, the swing on the saloon. It was the carpenter, everybody had their own business. At 2000, it was reversed. 90% of the people worked for a big company.
Yeah.
And now remember, the 19th century, or the 1900s, what were the tallest buildings in the city? Think of the steeples, right?
Yep, the churches, yeah.
In 2000, what are the tallest buildings in the city?
The banks.
Yes. You see where the smoke is went? So, and I don't think people are inherently evil. I don't. But I think that big groups and big companies kind of let evil slip by because they don't feel it's their responsibility.
Yeah.
So I think in order for us to maintain freedom, we need to have strong small businesses in this country. And I don't want to get political. I'm just going to say, but that basis, my political leanings are based strongly on that, on being in favor of small business.
Good, nice.
And that's it. Let's not go any further because you know where that's going to go.
Yeah. Let's leave that out of there. Well, I got to ask you, and I got one or two more questions here, but I always like to throw a little wrinkle in the mix here. So, John, you've been successful. You've had a career here spanning from, as I said, starting in that software engineering. You dabbled in music, aviation. Now you're doing, PEO. You're involved with the runners and different things like that. You've hit your head a couple times, you've stumbled, you've fallen off the bike, you've gotten back up. If you had an opportunity,
Got a bruise still from the last time I fell.
there you go. You got the living proof to go with it also, right? So if you had an opportunity to put a board together of 3 people, living or dead, that would actually, be your advisors, who would they be and why?
Believe it or not, they probably wouldn't be famous people. Probably wouldn't be people you've heard of, but certainly my father would be. He was a huge influence in my life. My wife.
Yeah. Because
she will tell you that I'm smarter than her, but that's a lie. She's actually much smarter than me. I'm quicker, okay? But she can sit there and figure things out, and she'll come back and go, that guy's lying. And she's right.
Yeah.
In the end, she's always right. And if I had to take one famous person, I'd probably pick somebody, and this, I know this is a little political, it's a little controversial, but I would love to have Donald Trump's business advice sometimes. I'm not saying I would take it, because we actually did business with Trump Enterprises in Sanibel back in the 90s.
Uh-huh.
We were building houses, and they're a construction company, and the local construction companies were terrible. I mean, if you could get them to show up and do work, they would bill you for it outrageously. And my dad, who was alive at the time, he and I were getting frustrated. And as a judge in New York, he had a very special relationship with Fred Trump. Because as you know, Fred was a slumlord.
Yeah.
And was in my dad's courtroom a lot being sued. And so he got to know him. In fact, I had lunch one day with my dad and Fred Trump and the brother that just died.
I don't remember his name, but okay.
He was my age, or maybe a year or two older. Okay. So I'm in my 20s and I'm having lunch with Fred Trump, who's Donald Trump's father. That's how I knew him. And then his brother, who ran Trump Enterprises at that time in Florida. And later on, when we were having the trouble with we hired them to come in and finish our construction. Now they are ruthless, okay? But they tell you that right up front. Hey, we're ruthless. If you don't pay us, we're coming in and taking all our materials away. Okay? Or we're just going to lien your property and we'll own it. But they tell you that. It's right up front. They come right at you. They're not sneaking around behind you. They're direct, they're honest, and they're ruthless. But they were on time, under budget, and to spec. And we got out of that development without losing our shirts. And I attribute a lot of the success to those business principles. Is he the most ethical person in the world? I don't know. But I know that his businesses are successful when they need to be successful, and when it's advantageous not to be successful. That's what he's had 4 companies file bankruptcy, but all of those were strategic defaults to get away from venture capitalists who were trying to take all his money. And I've run in recently. My business has gotten to the point where now venture capitalists are trying to come in and take my business, and suddenly I see, wow, now I know what he dealt with.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a thick skin. You know that?
Yeah.
To put up with, he's put up with. I'm sorry we got political, but it would be my dad, my wife, and somebody like Donald Trump. Maybe not him, but somebody who's been through that business, who's been in the rough and tumble world of corporate business.
Somebody asked me this same question, and you and I, we answered at least one of those correctly. Not that they're incorrect. Sorry. let me go back here.
It was getting graded, Roy.
No, but somebody asked me that question once, and I said, who would you put there? And I named off a bunch of people, and I said, oh yes, and my wife. And I said because same thing. She's the smarts. But secondly, I want to make sure I'm not sleeping in the doghouse tonight. So she went through.
I know that I'm not worried about that because fortunately, we have that relationship where I mean, well, I got a unicorn, you know. She's very low maintenance. She's beautiful. She's intelligent. She gets along. Everybody loves her, you know. But she's also just a really good judge of character and a really good judge of people. And I've learned that I'm not. So we complement each other so well. Our success, I mean, she tells me I trust people too much. And I do, because I trust people until you screw me, then I don't trust you.
Yeah.
And she says, why don't you stop trusting the ones that are obviously going to screw you before they do? And I said, well, if I can tell that, she goes, I'll figure that out for you. And you know what? She's been like pretty much dead on. So
she sounds exactly like my wife. We'll have to have them meet one day, because
they'll
probably exchange notes and say that we're very similar.
We're up for dinner. Let us know. Meet for dinner.
Awesome. So let's round it up here with one final question here, John. And this is one I know you threw out here at me, so I'm going to ask it because I'm curious to know what you're going to say. So have you given thought to what you would want written on your tombstone, said at your funeral, or remembered about you?
Oh, I think we all have. Right. At some time, I mean, especially once you get past 60, when you know, that's like Jim Morrison said, no one here gets out alive. Right.
Yeah.
But I want to leave a dent in history. You know, I don't want to have 3 generations gone and not remember me. You know, I don't know if I'm going to get a statue. I tried to start a city out here in East Orlando, and I told them the whole time, no, I don't want to be mayor. I don't want any money. I just want a statue that says this guy founded the city. And they laughed at me. But I said, why are you laughing at that? I said, who's going to remember you 100 years from now? So I guess I want something sort of like that. If you see this thing up above me here,
yeah,
this is the Florida 1-hour record holder for the velodrome. I hold the 1-hour record for the velodrome in Florida.
Oh, nice.
You know, but before you start tuning up, it doesn't mean that much. I'm the only one to have completed 1 hour on the velodrome, because it's the most boring thing you can do is go around in circles for an hour. It's very boring. There are other people that have tried it but have had weather problems, because the only velodrome Florida has is outdoors.
Yeah.
Or they've had mechanical problems and broke down. But I've held that for 3 years. So, and that's all, I'm always going to be down on there on Wikipedia or whatever as the inaugural holder of the Florida record. So I guess that's my dent in history. So that's my ego satisfied. Now I want I guess it's still ego. What do you want people to remember you for? I want to be remembered as somebody who wasn't afraid to try something, who went out and lived life to its fullest. And I don't know if this is an R-rated or PG-rated show. Wait, is the S word okay?
Let's keep it out.
I'll keep shooting then, all right? He didn't take stuff from anybody.
Yeah. Awesome.
He stood up for himself. How about that? He stood up for himself.
Awesome. Well, John, you know, it's been a great spending time here with you and hearing you.
Best hour, man.
Yeah, hearing your journey and you know all that you've gone through and the great nuggets that you have shared with us. Thanks for sharing your experience with us, and you know we'll love to come back in a few months and check in with you and have you back so that we can continue. We probably could go on for another hour, but we'll keep that for some time in the future.
I could talk. You know, I do want to thank you for something, Roy. Is that I've been interviewing people now for a couple of years. You're the first one to interview me. And now I know what it's like to be on the other side of the microphone. This is going to change the way I interview other people, and you've taught me. So I want to thank you for the lesson. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, John. And no, honestly, I mean, sincerely, thank you. It was truly an honor. I enjoyed it. This was great. You know, sometimes when you're interviewing people, you need to really prep. And you know, is it going to be a good fit? Is it going to, you know, are you going to be able to rap with the person and back and forth? But with you, it was very, very natural. So thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to us catching up here shortly. We're going to see each other in leadership forums and everything else that we're in. But
and you're going to be on my show pretty soon, right?
Yes, I will. Yes,
All
I will.
right.
Thanks for the invitation. I will. I definitely will.
Calling HR on Tuesdays. I want you on. I got a few open dates still left in October, so let's get together.
Sounds good. Sounds good. John, thank you very, very much. Always a pleasure. Folks, thank you very much for joining us on this episode here. Like we said, this podcast is really about you. If you are a business in the Central Florida area or anywhere else in the US and you want to get your story out there, click on the link below, drop us a line, we'll get back to you. And until then, stay safe and keep crushing it. Hi, I'm Roy Richardson, host of the Dynamic Business Leaders Podcast. Are you a business owner or a leader of a successful business? If yes, we'd love to have you as a guest on our podcast. Our goal is simple. We provide a platform for leaders to share their experiences to benefit others. We want to hear your story, how you got started, the challenges you faced along the way, and your passion today. If this sounds like you or if you know someone who fits the criteria, then be sure to visit our website at dynbizpodcast.aurora-infotech.com. That's dynbizpodcast.aurora-infotech.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the notification bell to be notified when our next podcast video is live. Or, if you'd rather listen to us during your car ride, you can also follow us on your favorite audio channel using the corresponding links below. Thanks, and once again, keep crushing it.